Almost 2 years ago, in April of 2014, Flint, Michigan decided to save money by switching its water supply from Lake Huron to the Flint River. Longtime residents thought that the switch was a joke and unbelievable. However, they were sadly mistaken because the state did make the switch. Shortly after the switch, residents started to notice that their water smelled appalling, tasted, and looked atrocious. Many residents described their water as being dirty and sewage-like. When citizens started to raise awareness and complain about their tap water, state officials persisted that the water was safe to drink, and even Flint Mayor Dane Walling drank the water on TV just to prove it. Finally, in August of 2015, researchers from Virginia Tech were suspicious and wanted to test the water for themselves. What they discovered was horrifying because the water's condition was worse than they could have imagined. For almost 2 years, residents were bathing, cooking, and drinking water with extremely elevated levels of lead. Rhonda Kelso, a 52-year-old longtime resident of Flint, Michigan, who lives with her 12-year-old daughter, Kaylin, now is developmentally delayed and has a heart condition. A CNN article published on January 10, 2016 by Sarah Ganem and Lynn Tran quotes Rhonda Kelso saying, "You're paying for poison. I'm paying for water that's a toxic waste." What is sadly disturbing is that Flint is not alone. Today, Sarah, Gus, Denise, Ariana, Devin, and I will confront the crisis of contaminated tap water from municipal water systems in the United States of America. This is important to you because, as the EPA recorded, we use on average up to 80 to 100 gallons of water a day. How would you feel knowing that every single drop of that water was contaminated, like in Flint, Michigan, or in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and in Charleston, West Virginia, causing ghastly effects from fever to vomiting and cancers to death?
First, we will address the overflowing disaster that is contaminated tap water. Second, we will splash you with the causes to this revoltingly toxic tap. And finally, we will slide into proposing possible solutions. Now I'll hand it over to Gus and Ariana to consider the problem.
Let's dive into the increasingly unhealthy issue of America's community water. In places of America, water has water that is disgustingly discolored and filled with contaminants such as bacteria, lead, and arsenic. The Ecology Dictionary defines municipal water as water that is either grounded or surface water sources that are piped to individual users' homes. Potentially, we're all at risk. According to a statistic from the World Health Organization 2013 states that 99% of Americans receive running water. This especially affects low-income communities. Now we're going to show you a visual. This is Flint's contaminated water versus Detroit's clean water. Now I will pass it on to Gus to talk about the physiological harms.
Thank you, Ariana. Now we'll talk about the physiological harms, which include diseases and health issues caused by contaminated water. In an article by the Charleston Gazette on August 29, 2014, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was discovered to have a problem with its public water system. They found a brain-eating amoeba inside it, which is considered to be extremely deadly. Symptoms include severe headaches, fevers, vomiting, seizures, and hallucinations. Other substances found in contaminated water include arsenic and chromium-6. On a case control study found researching the effects of arsenic in drinking water by the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, states that the International Agency for Research on Cancer has declared arsenic in drinking water as a known cause for human cancer of the skin, lungs, and bladder. An article by The Sun on April 17, 2014, by Jim Steingert mentions that chromium 6 is a cardiogenic substance which attacks the lungs. A more powerful substance found in deadly substance found in contaminated water is lead. According to a Forbes article on January 9, 2016, early symptoms of lead include instability, insomnia, and lack of appetite. Lead poisoning causes speech impairment and behavioral problems. Now to Ariana to talk about chemical spills.
Now let's talk about the harms behind chemical spills. In May 2015, Charles P. Skade from PLOS1 wrote that Flint, Michigan had to deal with chemical spills in their water, and the residents had to deal with symptoms such as diarrhea, vomiting, and nausea. Now, on January 23rd, 2016, Monica Davey mentioned how Flint, Michigan water tested positive for bacteria. They tested positive for E. coli bacteria, and as a result, the residents had to boil their water. Now let's talk about the societal harms.
The societal harms root from unequal distribution of wealth and unequal funding in certain infrastructures. According to a Wall Street Journal on February 5th, 2016, the crisis in Flint, Michigan could have been avoided if federal regulation of water testing was up to date. Now to the economic problems.
The economic problems affect local businesses and communities. According to an article from the Los Angeles Times stated that residents in Flint had a bigger issue to worry about. They had to worry about the mortgage lenders not making a payment for their loans. So essentially, homebuyers had to prove that contamination was not on their property in order for a loan to be made. Now, this also affected other local businesses. David Zucchino from the Los Angeles Times published an article January 2015 mentioning that West Virginia's water faced tainted chemical spills, which affected local businesses and they had to shut down. Now, when local businesses do not have running tap water that is sufficient and meets quality standards, they're forced to shut down and local communities are affected by this. Now that Gus and I have talked about the harms, we will pass it to Devin and Sarah to talk about the causes and solutions.
Thank you, Ariana and Gus. There are three main reasons to the occurring water crisis across the country, and those are increase in water pollution, reduce in water inspection, and disparity in infrastructure. Now let's have a look at the water pollution. Factories that have been built close to the water source contribute solely to the locals' drinking water if they are not cautiously monitoring their chemical waste. Chemical substances such as grit, mercury, lead, and other sodium compounds are certain to be found in contaminated drinking water. The clarification of the Clean Water Act by Bernard Sweetney, published on October 1st, 2014, states that in January of that same year, drinking water for more than 300,000 West Virginians was poisoned when a Freedom Industry storage tank leaked, spewing more than 7,500 gallons of methylcyclohexane, a flammable and toxic liquid, into the Elk River, just upstream from the water treatment plant. Now I will show you a video clip of the chemical substance methane found in tap water in a home in Pennsylvania.
So So as you saw in the video with the West Virginians, another leading cause of water pollution in our tap water is due to the amount of runoff water we're getting in our system.